table. We got the video going, so no bumping anymore. Okay, so usually I start the video. After I do the recommendation. That's what I've been doing recently. But this week, I'm so excited about this recommendation. It's really important. Okay, it's called "The Body Keeps the Score." That's the name of the book. Okay, and this is what I've learned is that if you have ever been homeless, or have been hanging around homeless people a lot, you are dealing with trauma. Okay, the longer that you're homeless, the more trauma you get. Okay, and so the more PTSD you get. That is just part of the process. This is a book about trauma, and it's written by a guy whose name I'm not going to. Van der Kolk. Van der Kolk is his last name. Bessel van der Kolk. I think I got it. I think that's right. Anyway, some Dutch guy. So he's actually been working with PTSD. Vietnam vets were coming home. So way back in the early 70s, he was working with PTSD and helping the VA figure out that, oh yeah, PTSD, that's something that we need to take care of, not just like they're just making it up. And he went through all the different treatments, whether it be medicine or whatever else, and he goes through all the things that he, in a generally popular way, he goes through all the different kinds of trauma that people experience, and how the different kinds of treatments. He has a huge section of the book that's all about treatments, all these different kinds of treatments. What works, what doesn't, what works in this case, what works in this case, that kind of thing. It is a great book. Now, I listened to this on audiobook, so I heard it. He'll say that the part 2, Your Brain on Trauma, is very technical. And I would recommend just skipping that part. Because it's technical. And I don't recommend that she skip that part because she'll read it and she'll just go, oh, well, of course. But for most of the rest of us, it's just like, it sounds like a lot of gobbledygook because he's using like Latin names and stuff like that. But anyway, and so, but if you skip that part, it is amazing how much really good information there is. This has really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to use it to help other people. And so,
I want to get the video or the
audio of it. Yeah,
when I get paid, is it at any bookstore? I want to write.
Well, yeah. I mean,
do the free trial of Audible.
Well, do you have a smartphone? No.
Oh.
Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can figure something out. It's harder to get that. There are ways that you can even get the book for free on audio, but we'll have to arrange and see how that can be done.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. So recommended that. Let's go ahead and let's get on to our Bible study. Okay. So we're in Matthew chapter 5, starting at verse 21. So Matthew 5, verse 21. And so we are in the Sermon on the Mount still. We will be in the Sermon on the Mount for a long time. Today, we're going to cover 2 whole verses.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, man. We are looking along, just cruising. Okay, so this is our 5th part of the Sermon on the Mount. So we're going to look at verses 21 and 22. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 and 22. And so we are going to read this now. Anybody want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it.
Great.
21 and 22?
Yes, please.
Okay. Teaching about anger. You have heard that it was said to your ancestors, you shall not kill, and whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, whoever's brother will be liable to judgment, and whoever says to his brother will be answerable to Narradin, and whoever says, you fool, will be liable to Genesis.
You had Hebrew in that translation. Just say, oh, okay. Yeah, it says Gehenna. And the other word is Raka.
That's what I.
Yeah.
Sanhedrin.
What's that? And it's Sanhedrin, right. Right. So it says, if you say to your brother Raka, you will be liable before the Sanhedrin. And if whoever says, you fool, be guilty enough to go to Gehenna. So Raka, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but generally means idiot. And then Sanhedrin is the kind of the high council or supreme court of the Jewish people at the time. And then you have Gehenna, which is another word for
Fire.
Well, a lot of people call it hell. But
Mine
it's
says
really,
fire of hell.
Yeah, fire of hell. I don't like using hell for that because it doesn't mean like. The funny thing is Gehenna is an actual place. It's a real place. It's a place outside Jerusalem where they used to burn garbage.
Oh.
And so they would throw garbage in there, and then they'd burn their garbage there. So it's the garbage pit. And so they're saying, so Jesus is saying, it is an image which is similar to hell, which is why a lot of translations put hell. But anyway, there's different translations for that. But you happen to get a translation where they're just like, oh heck, let's use the old words. Why translate? That's only what they're paying us to do. Okay. So now what we're talking about here is a couple things I just want to remind you from last week. Okay, so first of all, the general section title is the Beatitude, whoever or blessed are you who are merciful, for you shall receive mercy. So the whole section is talking about mercy. Okay? And Jesus had just finished introducing the subject of the law. And he basically said that he fulfills the law. He is the one who fulfills the law. And that he's not getting rid of the law. That people can follow it if they want, but if anybody wants to follow the law, they have to follow it according to mercy, interpreted by mercy. Okay? So if Jesus is the person who fulfilled the law is his. It's his law. He gets to do with it what he wants. Because it's his law, he gets to interpret it the way he wants. And in another place in Matthew chapter 23, it says that there's only one teacher, that is the Christ, and we need to listen to that one teacher. There is no other teacher, only Jesus. Jesus is the only teacher. So he's the one who is the teacher of the law. And in this chapter, he goes through a number of laws and says, this is how I'm interpreting the law. So we're going to see a bunch of things that are called antitheses. They're called antitheses, in which he says, you have heard it said, meaning there is a law or there is a tradition that you have heard or that other people have heard. But I tell you, meaning this is my take on this. And so this is kind of my official take. The law is mine. I fulfilled it. It's mine. I'm interpreting it for you. Okay? So that's what's kind of going on here. Is Jesus is going through 6 different laws and is interpreting it for us. Okay? And the whole point of what he's doing is he's taking all of these laws and he's saying, if you are going to interpret it through the eyes of mercy, through the eyes of compassion, this is how we're supposed to understand this law. Now, the problem that I have, or the question that I have about this whole passage is he saying, well, here's the law, but here's the interpretation through mercy, and so here's the real way that I want you to understand it now. Here's the real way that I want you to follow it, and follow it exactly this way. Or is he giving us 6 examples to teach us how to interpret the law through mercy? And so I'm hoping that by the end of this, we're going to have kind of a better idea of what it is that he's wanting to do by the time we get through the 6 passages. But today we're just going to deal with the first one. Okay, so let's take a look at it. All right, so he said that the ancients were told. You have heard that the ancients were told. And Linda, I don't remember the word that you used in that. Right at the beginning, it says you have heard ancestors instead of ancients. They use ancestors. Okay, so you have heard that the ancestors were told, do not murder. So who are the ancestors?
Mine says was said to the people long ago.
To the people long ago. So who are these people or ancestors or ancients that Jesus is talking about? That we're told, do not murder.
The ones Moses was following, the ones that Moses had, who were following Moses.
Children of Israel in the wilderness, right? Yeah,
yes.
children of Israel in the wilderness. And who is it who's telling them, do not murder?
God.
God, yeah, God. It's actually, this is one of the few times where God is speaking to Israel, and they are hearing his voice. So 10 commandments, right? Right? Smack in the middle of the 10 commandments, you got do not murder. Okay? I noticed that your translation said do not kill. And that's King James translation too. It says do not kill. The problem with do not kill is like immediately after that, they're talking about sacrificing. Well, you're killing and sacrificing. So it's not just killing in general. That's the problem. And so at least back then, God is not going to say, do not kill, by the way, kill these things. He's not saying that. So that's why most translations say do not murder instead of do not kill, because there is a killing that is okay, and then there's a killing that's not okay. So it is okay, according to the Bible in general, to have a hamburger. It's okay to have a hamburger. But that is killing. And the fact is it's okay to breathe, and every time we breathe, we're killing something. That's kind of a technical thing, but yeah, we have little tiny animals that go into us, and then they die. Every time that we get a cold, we're killing lots and lots and lots of things. I suppose we're not doing it on purpose. I'm not really breathing on purpose either. But anyway, so, okay. But it's okay to have a hamburger according to the Bible. If you don't want to have a hamburger, that's okay too. It's no problem. But that's what... So God told the people back in the day, don't commit murder. If anyone commits murder, they'll be liable to the court. The actual Greek word is anyone commits murder, they will be judged. They will be judged. That's just what it says. And then Jesus says, but I say to you, anyone who is angry with his brother will be judged. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What is anger? What do we understand to be anger? Lots of different things could be anger. Anger is. What is anger?
Being mad at someone.
Being mad. So,
Yes.
so it's like an emotion, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So to be mad at someone, feeling that emotion, that's anger. Do you think Jesus is telling us not to feel an emotion?
No.
Probably not. we can't hardly help feeling an emotion. And if we think about it for a second, you get angry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Temple, tearing
Yeah.
everything down.
Yeah, he seemed pretty pissed off at
Little
that
ticked
point.
off, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, we have a text. It's in Mark chapter 3. It says that he looked at the Jewish leaders in anger. Very specific, that he looked at them with anger. So he felt anger.
Was that the one with the healing of the
Right.
paralytic, was it? Or?
Not the paralytic. No, it's the man whose hand was
Oh,
withered.
that's right, yeah.
Man whose hand was withered, and he knew that they were just waiting to get on his case because he's healing on the Sabbath. And so it says specifically, he's waiting for them to do it, and as he's waiting, he looks at them, stares at each one of them, and then goes and heals the guy. Okay, yeah, that's so. Jesus definitely felt anger. So when Jesus says, basically, anger is as bad as murder, he's not talking about feeling mad. Okay? Well, what else might he be talking about?
Not at them, but what they're doing, I guess. The
I mean,
anger's not pointed direct. Well, I guess it would be. Because it's like I say, I don't hate anybody. I just dislike things they do.
I see. So you're saying you're saying that the
Angry,
anger
but
that
not at them.
so the
but
kind of
at
anger that
what's
would be a
happening.
bad kind of anger would be being angry at the person instead
Right.
of what they do.
Right.
But if a person is doing
Yeah.
something on purpose, you
Right.
know they're doing it on purpose, and it's a bad thing. Don't you get mad at them?
Yeah.
I mean, can you separate a person from what they do very easy? I'm just wondering. I don't know.
I mean, I know what I want to say, but I don't see it here.
Okay, no,
You
just
know,
tell me
from
what.
Paul,
Okay,
you've got the whole idea of being angry, but not acting out in that anger, not behaving with sin.
be angry but do not sin.
Yeah,
What Paul
and
says.
so, I want to connect it with that. But I
Okay,
did
So
notice
he's
with
looking
this,
at
the
them
other thing
like
that
this,
you
but he's
could
not.
bring out of this as well is anyone who is angry with his brother we could be talking about unforgiveness of that that bitter holding on to kind of anger.
oh, so like Paul says, but he actually is quoting Proverbs, do not let the sun go down on your anger.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of like that enduring kind of,
Where they've
Bitter, where it turns
repented and
into
you're
bitterness
just,
or
yeah, and
hatred.
you're still just holding on to it.
Uh-huh,
kind of
yeah.
thing, which
Okay.
could be in there, but I don't.
okay,
I mean,
okay,
it's certainly not saying that specifically,
okay,
but
but that's
could be an
certainly,
aspect of it.
that's certainly a kind of anger that is more damaging. Having bitterness or hatred of someone is more damaging than just being angry at someone.
Right.
And so, yeah, I can certainly, see that. What was it that, Carmen, you were saying about? Yeah, okay. You were talking about how when Jesus was angry that he didn't.
He wasn't angry at.
That you were talking about how he was looking at them.
Oh, when you said that he was looking at him,
Uh-huh.
but he wasn't lashing out
He wasn't lashing out at them, but he looked at them with
to
anger.
let them know he was angry.
And so the action of anger that he had was different. How did he respond in his anger? He had to look, but what else did he have? In anger, he healed someone.
Right.
Well, I mean, heck, if that's your response to anger, get angry more.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Let's all get angry and heal people. That'd be great. Okay.
And never go to bed angry with your man. They're just throwing
Okay.
it. They say that all the time.
Okay, and so there's other things that we could talk about with anger too. You know, so there's the emotional response that we have with anger. I don't think that we can actually help the emotional response. We're going to get mad. We're human beings. So we're going to get mad. And we usually get mad when we see some sort of injustice or wrong or something that's not fair.
When we think we see it,
Okay.
either way.
Yeah, either when we think we see it or we do see it or whatever. If we think that there's something that's unfair, whether it be to us or to somebody else, then we're gonna get angry. Okay, that's generally the root of it. But when we get angry like that, we say it's unfair, then we want to punish someone. Okay, and sometimes that's a good thing. Okay, if someone is threatening or attacking you, it is a good thing to maybe not hang around that person. And that's a kind of a punishment. It's a way of protecting ourselves and to say, well, I'm not going to be hanging around with you very much. But as some scientists have noted, that we tend to overcompensate punishment for other people. So our tendency is to punish people more than what we originally have. So we're in the back seat of a car with our brother, and we're somewhere around 10 years old, and one of them hit, so we get hit by our brother, and then we're going to hit our brother back, but we got to hit them back a little bit more because we want to make sure that they feel the full impact of what we felt with the pain. And so we do it a little bit more just to make sure that they feel the full amount and not have any less. But that means that they're going to turn around and they're going to hit us, and they have to hit us a little bit more than we hit them because they want to make sure that we feel the full impact of what they felt, because that wasn't fair. If it was the same, then it'd be okay. Well, then now we're going to, and then pretty soon someone's dead. Okay, maybe not.
Someone's
You're
in the
both
hospital.
dead because whoever's driving has stopped the car and whipped some butts.
That's right. That's right. If you don't stop that, I'm just going to throw you out. Okay.
While the car's moving.
While the car's moving 60 miles an hour. Okay. So there's that. Also, there's the whole fury where we just start acting without thinking. There's the long-term thing where we get bitter or hatred. And all that. Now, Jesus, he definitely felt anger, but his actions were very considered. In one case, we can see how he healed somebody. He was angry at the temple. And you could say that he even did a violent action, but he never hurt anybody. He was careful not to hurt anybody. He turned over some tables and maybe ruined a person's day of business. That's probably as far as it got, Scared a few people, probably. Okay. All right. Now, when we look at the kind of anger that Jesus is talking about, we want to look at the examples that he gives right here. So that way we have a better idea of what he's talking about in this context. All of those things that you guys talk about in anger, they're all right. Okay. That's all a way of understanding anger, but to understand what Jesus is talking about in this context, we have to look at the examples that he gives in this context. Okay, so we have two examples, which are kind of two aspects of the same thing. So first, he says, anybody who tells someone raka. Okay, raka is an Aramaic word, which is the language that Jesus spoke. Okay, so Aramaic is the language that Jesus spoke, and probably all of his teachings are in Aramaic. When they've been passed down to us in Greek, but sometimes the authors wanted to say, well, I don't have a really good way to translate this in Greek, so I'm going to use the original language that Jesus spoke. So like the word Abba, that's part of the original language that Jesus spoke, which is, we get a better sense from the word Abba than we do from the word Father, what it was that Jesus was saying. Because Abba, you can see, you can hear that that's similar to like the word Papa or Daddy. It's along those lines. But when we say Father, that sounds very stilted and formal. So some translators said, well, I'm not going to use the word pater, which is the Greek word, father. Yeah, pater is the Greek word.
So it's like Latin and Greek?
Yeah, it's both.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm not going to use the word pater. I'm going to use the word Abba, because that really gets a better idea of what Jesus is talking about when he's saying Father. So when Jesus taught the Lord's Prayer, he taught Abba. It wasn't our Father, he taught Abba. Okay, anyway. So in this case, Matthew's just like, well, okay, we want to get a better idea of what Jesus is talking about, so we're going to say Raka. Okay, and so instead of that being Greek, he just says Raka. Now the second example that he gives is the guy saying, whoever says, you fool. And that's the Greek word moros, where we get the word moron from. Yeah, that's right. And so it's moron. So it's literally means idiot. Okay? And it's always translated in the translation. It's not always translated. Sometimes it's translated otherwise, but it's usually translated fool. Okay. So if I started calling you all fool, are you guys going to be really mad at me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you really?
No.
It's such a silly word. Oh, you're such a fool.
If you meant it.
If I really meant it, I probably wouldn't use it, would I?
Right.
You know, I was looking at different translations and how they did this. Some of them translated it empty head. You are such an empty head. I'm not going to get mad at empty head. I'm going to laugh.
Maybe
at that.
airhead.
If I was in the 80s, maybe I would.
Yeah,
Okay,
empty head,
come on.
I'd laugh.
I think that we need to help out these translators, because I think that they have a real problem. I believe that most of these guys are locked in a room way too much, and they don't actually have an idea of the kinds of words that really upset people. So what kinds of words might you be called, or somebody else called, that is going to actually make you really mad?
Well, there's idiot.
Idiot, I guess you could, yeah. Idiot, I might be, yeah.
Stupid.
Stupid, okay.
One that's gonna not only get people mad at what you're saying to them, but mad that you're saying it at all would be retard.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Okay.
Yep.
All right. You know, if we wanted to emphasize the feminine side, we could say bitch.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
female dog. Nobody wants to be called female dog.
That's one of the words I hate.
What's that?
There's another one that I hate even worse.
Does it start with a C?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Same idea. Now that one, that's really, you get called that, you're gonna get mad right away.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. And you know, and if you call someone an effer or a mother effer, something
Mhm.
like that, you might get really mad. They might mean it as a joke. That's possible. I don't know. But you might get really mad at that. You know, but the thing is that the point is Raka or Moros at the time were supposed to be trigger words. We're supposed to be words that instantly got you upset, instantly got you mad. It's hard to capture that in when you say, you fool. Oh, you fool. I was looking for insults that would really get upset. You know who is the best at insulting? Shakespeare. He was so good at it. He was so good. I'm going to read you some because they're so good.
That's not even fair because I didn't say lackwit because it wasn't modern.
Yeah, well, you know, I went ahead and I studied ahead of time and I did all this research. And so I cheated. I totally cheated.
No, but I mean, lackwit was one of the words I
Okay.
thought of when
Well,
we were
you
asking
should have
for
said it.
insults, but it's not modern.
So, I
And
mean,
is
I'm
anybody going to get mad if you say lackwit?
not today.
See,
Not
No,
today.
I don't
That's
know.
all right.
But get this, okay, but get this, some of this isn't even like old words. This is good stuff. You know, I would beat you, but I would infect my hands. That's a great insult. Oh, I love that. You know, the rankest compound of villainous smell that ever offended a nostril.
What are they gonna do? They're gonna laugh.
But
What
what
is
a great
awesome.
insult. It's a beautiful insult. Thou sodden-witted Lord, thou hast no more brain than I have in my elbow. That's a good one. I don't know how mad it will make somebody, but yeah.
Wow, you have a really smart elbow.
You have a genius elbow. Then there's sometimes he'll collect a whole bunch of words and put them together. You know, I don't even know what that starble.
Starveling.
Okay,
So you're
a person who
scrawny.
is got you. Scrawny. You starveling. You eel skin, you dried neat's tongue, you bull's pizzle. Oh, nice. That'll upset somebody for sure.
If only they figure out what it
Yeah, what it is. Yeah, you stock to utter what is like thee, you tailor's yard, you sheath, you bow case, you vile standing tuck. That's so beautiful. But there's the one that's even longer. That trunk of humors, that bolting hutch of beastliness, the swollen parcel of dropsies, that huge bombard of sack, the stuffed cloak bag of guts, the mosted Manning tree ox with pudding in his belly, that reverend vice, the gray iniquity, the father ruffian, the vanity in years.
Oh,
I don't know what half those things mean, but man, it sure does sound good when you put them all together. Okay. All right.
Who was that at?
I don't know, but it's from, I believe that's from Richard II.
Oh.
So, you know, most of these come from the histories, which makes me want to go and read the histories because I'm thinking, well, there might be some really
They might be more entertaining.
more entertaining than I thought. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So, so what we have then is we've got Jesus saying anger, not good. And then we have guys throwing insults at other people. Okay, huge insults at other people that are instantly going to get people mad. We're still don't really have a really good grasp of exactly what Jesus is talking about. But there is somebody who was very close to Jesus and who will help us interpret this thing. So if you can, turn to the book of James, chapter 4. James chapter 4. James is just before Revelation at the end of the Bible. Okay, just a few books before Revelation. So we're going to go to James chapter 4, right at the beginning of the chapter. We're actually going to go James chapter 4, verse 2. Now, traditionally, the book of James was written by Jesus' brother. But traditionally or not, James, who wrote the book, takes a lot of it from Jesus' teaching. There's a lot of it that is straight from Jesus' teaching. And this verse comes straight from the passage that we are dealing with. It's not actually even connected to any other passage. Directly, this particular passage, he is using it. And when we read it, we'll see. Okay, are you there yet, James? I'm gonna have to go a little ways. Yeah, go ahead, like almost to the end of the Bible, and go backwards. And then, yeah, keep going. Get there. Now you're at Revelation. Okay, 2 Peter, right before 1 Peter. Now go back a little bit more. Teeny bit. 1 Peter, that's it. You should be right there. One page. James, there you go. Right there. Okay, James chapter 4, verse 2. So right at the beginning here, James says, he's writing to Jewish Christian churches. Okay, James says, you lust and do not have, so you commit murder. I just want to say right there, those are some pretty gnarly churches. That's amazing churches that they get mad at someone because they have something that they want and they kill them. I'm telling you, that church has got a problem. That's a serious, I've never seen a church that has murder as a serious problem. Okay, obviously, he doesn't mean murder literally, does he? He doesn't mean murder literally. We have never had a church, well, of course, lately we have been having churches where murder is a problem, because people have been going into churches and shooting people, killing them. In fact, there was a church last year, I think, where a guy was mad at the pastor, didn't like what a pastor told him, and so he went in and shot the pastor and shot various members in the congregation. Okay, well, this is a sign of the times, so I guess I guess it's not so funny to say that murder is a problem in the church, because of course nowadays it actually is a problem. Okay. But we have no indication that murders happened in the early church. That is not a problem that they had. So James is talking about murder symbolically. So what does he mean? Well, he actually explains in the next verse. So you lust and do not have, so you commit murder. You are envious and cannot obtain. Envious and lust mean the same thing. So he's doing a parallel passage. So he's saying the same thing again. But this time he says, you are envious and cannot obtain. So you fight and quarrel. The fighting and the quarreling is the same thing as murder. So what James is saying is that if you are in a Christian congregation, if you're fighting and quarreling, you're having these big verbal brawls with other people in the church, that is the same as murder. That we have that's like that is our passage in Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus says that murder is like calling someone an idiot. Okay, calling someone an idiot is the beginning of a fight, or it might be the middle of a fight. It depends on the kind of fight, I guess. What Jesus is talking about, what Jesus is talking about here is he's saying, yes, everyone knows that murder is wrong. And if you look in the law, in the Old Testament, and they're interpreting this passage about about do not murder, it all has to do with different kinds of violence. Oh, well, you're going to be violent, if in this context you got violent because you just got angry, but you didn't plan it ahead of time, then this happens. But if you did plan it ahead of time, then this happens. And if two people are fighting and someone accidentally dies, then this happens. And what if a baby dies, then this happens. These sorts of things. So all these things get talked about. Jesus is saying it isn't just the violence that causes murder. It isn't just the violence that's the problem. It's what you say, too. It's not just what you do with your fists or what you do with your hands or with a knife. It also has to do with what you say. Okay? So he's not just talking about silly name calling and all that. He's actually talking about verbal abuse, or specifically saying something that is going to piss somebody off so they can get into a fight. Okay, so when Jesus is saying, you the raka, or you fool, you are saying things to get someone stirred up. What's the next thing that happens? They're going to get really mad and they're going to start screaming in your face. And one time or another, somebody's going to start throwing punches. And then all of a sudden, someone's dead. And Jesus is saying, the person who did violence in that, yes, they are certainly at fault, and that is a bad thing. But the person who started it is the person who started throwing verbal punches. So it's talking about verbal abuse and verbal punches and hitting below the belt with your mouth. Okay,
It's
so
like, it's not what goes in your mouth, it's what comes out.
it's not what goes in your mouth, it's what comes out. That's exactly right. And so Jesus, which is a quote from Jesus in another place in Matthew,
Yep.
in which he's saying, in fact, actually, he follows that up by saying, we will be judged for every small word that we say. That every small word is going to be measured. Our speech has to be measured carefully. And he's saying, and in this passage, he's saying that too. He said, yes, we are going to be judged if we murder, but if we use our language to cut people down, to tear people apart, we're going to be judged for that too. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Let me give you an example. There is an ancient text, really important, that everybody knows, called Toy Story. Have you seen the movie Toy Story? Yes. Have you seen the movie Toy Story?
I'm not sure.
With all the toys, they come to life and
Woody and Buzz.
Yeah, I think I have seen it.
Okay, all right. So there's 3 Toy Story movies. I'm talking about the first one.
Okay.
Okay. First movie. So Woody is envious of Buzz because Buzz is getting all the attention, and everybody loves Buzz, and nobody's paying attention to Woody. Okay, so he is envious. So Woody starts using language against Buzz. Buzz is kind of showing off. Okay, part of it he doesn't even mean to show off, but he's showing off a little bit, and Woody is cutting him down with language. So Woody says, "Oh, he doesn't have a laser. He just has a little blinky light thing." You know,
Yeah.
Oh, that's not falling. No, that's not flying. That's falling with style. At one point, Woody says, "Oh, I'd love to see you as a crater." That's a deep cut. But then by the end, Woody is going and screaming in Buzz's face, saying, "You are a child's plaything," trying to let him know that he is nothing, that he is insignificant, cutting him down bit by bit. Now, he does this throughout 3/4 of the movie. He just does it again and again and again. And Buzz is trying not to react, right? He's like, not that big of a deal. This isn't my planet anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just a visitor here. Doesn't matter. All that kind of stuff. Until finally, Buzz can't take it anymore. All right. And so finally, after all these dramatic circumstances and all that, Buzz says, "I'd like to inform you that we don't promote revenge on my planet." And Woody says, "Oh, that's good." And then Buzz says, "But we aren't on my planet, are we?" And then they start to fight and going after each other. Who started the fight? Buzz started being violent. Well, and Buzz intentionally started being violent.
The Woody started it.
Woody started it. He started it throughout the entire movie. But the whole thing, he's constantly, on Buzz's case, constantly insulting Buzz and even doing things that are threatening. He didn't ever want to actually hurt Buzz, but he did anyway. All right? This is the situation that Jesus is talking about. Now, this is the kind of thing in which it starts with the verbal stuff. It starts with the verbal takedowns. And it starts with and honestly, Woody was verbally abusing Buzz. He was doing it in a mild way. Sometimes he was doing it under his breath, which is bad. And sometimes he was saying it out. Sometimes he's screaming it in his face. This is verbal abuse. Buzz, I think, handled himself really well for the most part. He dealt with it for a long time until he finally snapped. And in that part of the movie, when we see Buzz finally snap, we're just like, "Oh, it's about time."
Yeah,
Oh my
I'm gonna have to go
goodness,
watch
you
that
know?
again. Yeah. just
Anyway.
get the part. Yeah.
And it's a good, and it's okay because they're just toys.
Right.
And they're not really gonna hurt each other, you know? I mean, they're just toys. But if we saw that kind of thing in a movie where it was grown men doing that, from the time it started ongoing, we are waiting for it to turn into a serious problem, which somebody is really gonna get hurt. The more modern the movie, the more hurt they're going to be. You know, we watch the movies in the 50s and maybe they didn't get quite as hurt, you know, whatever. Except for In the Waterfront, they got really hurt. Anyway, all I'm saying is that what Jesus is looking at Woody and Buzz and he's saying Woody is responsible. That you can say, yes, maybe Buzz threw the first punch, but it was Woody who set the whole thing up. Woody set it up. And Jesus is not saying that committing murder or getting into a fight or being violent is a good thing, or it's okay in certain circumstances. Jesus is not saying that. What he's saying is that the person who verbally started it, the person who verbally throws punches, is also going to be held responsible. Okay, so Jesus is not trying to say that there are some people who will look at that verse and say, well, I may have thrown the first punch, but really it's their fault. It's your fault too, because you threw the punch. Okay, your fault too, because you took the knife out and you started threatening people. That's not good, no matter how you look at it. That's not okay. But the verbal attack, Jesus is saying, is also a problem. He's not trying to say, oh, here's another weapon or another law that you can throw at other people. It's a way for us to examine our own hearts. It's a way for us to examine ourselves and say, am I complicit in somebody else's anger? I want to make sure that we understand that we do not overuse the principle. There are people who are abusive people, and they will be looking for any excuse to be abusive. So you can do a completely innocuous thing. Well, that doesn't even have to be an abusive person. It could be a person who's having a bad day or something like that. But you can do a totally innocuous thing, and someone is going to start screaming at you or hitting you or something like that. And that doesn't mean it's your fault. Jesus is not trying to say, well, see, you did this too. No. And that person cannot say, well, you did this and this and this. Really, what did I do? Did I insult you? Did I attack you verbally? Did I scream in your face? No. All I did was, I said, don't forget to take your coat before you go out. And now you're starting to get on my case. What happened there? That is not your fault. It is not anybody. It's only the fault of the person who got upset. Okay, so we need to make sure that we understand that. Okay. On the other hand, we can use our language, we can use our speech in ways that we know in our heart of hearts that we are tearing the other person down, and we're doing it on purpose. That's what Jesus is talking about. That when we've attacked the other person and we know that we're doing it,
But we have deniability.
we have deniability because we say, well, I didn't punch him. I didn't actually.
No, I mean,
Oh,
using your language in such a way that you have deniability. Oh, I just said this. I didn't, you know. You want them to get mad, but when they get mad, you act like you have no idea why. That's really
right. And so what we need to remember is that God has a video going on us all the time. And so when there is a fight or there's a situation or altercation, God is looking at it and he knows who did what. Not just the intent. He's looking at, this is not saying, Jesus is not saying, well, see, you were angry at that person, and even though you didn't say anything, that it's coming out. No, Jesus is not looking in your heart of hearts and looking at he's only looking at the actions, at what we do and what we say, what actually comes out in the real world. And if our real world action is we started with verbal abuse and then they start reacting against us violently, Jesus is saying both parties are at fault. He's got the videotape and he's looking at it. And so what he's saying is, let's not get involved in that. Let's not belittle other people. Okay, let's not tear them down. Let's not make them feel like they are being abused or hurt. Now, if they react in violence, it's still their responsibility. But it's also ours if we do that kind of thing. If we're belittling people, if we're hurting people with our words. You know, maybe it's not punching and certainly not murder. There's a big difference between murder and talking to somebody, okay? But still, we, you know, if we do that kind of language, we have to take a certain amount of responsibility too. Okay, and so that's, yes.
Which in the political realm translates into none of those nice fun zingers that we like to do about the other guy's candidate, the other side.
Or frankly, doing threats on other people, simply because it's popular to make those kinds of threats.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, like talking about Mexicans, or talking about immigrants, or talking about Muslims, and just saying bad things about them because you know that it's going to get you elected.
Yeah.
That's evil thing. It's threatening other people, and yeah, you're going to get judged for those things. You're going to get judged for every careless word you say.
Right. Well, I meant on our level though. I
Oh.
meant not the candidates. I'm talking about on Facebook. I'm talking about.
Oh, I see what you're
I'm
saying.
talking about memes. I'm talking about
Yeah.
libtard or sheeple or that's what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I see. Yeah.
Republican, you know, all of that nonsense.
Have you heard the term snowflake? No. It's people have come up with a whole new set of language to insult people on the other side of the political spectrum.
Yes.
And so all kinds of insults,
And so we can't.
just because they
join in
disagree
that
with you
stuff.
on certain, but
We
yeah,
just can't join in that stuff.
Right.
It's not.
Well, I've never been on the internet, and
No.
so it's probably a good thing I don't know that stuff.
Thank
They could call me a snowflake, I go, oh yeah,
Thank you. I'm sorry.
thank you. I like snowflakes.
You mean I'm beautiful and unique? Wow, you're so kind.
And I float.
And I float.
Oh, that would be
Yeah. That'd be great. All right. Okay. Any questions? Any comments on this?
I always wonder who made the sticks and stones can break the bones, but words will never hurt me.
A man.
My granddaughter, she's like that, and it's like, yes, words can hurt you. It's hard to explain to her.
Yeah.
I just hate that saying.
I hate it too.
Okay, that was.
But yeah, no, some guy who was trying to convince other guys that names don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Well, names do mean things, and sometimes you say the right one and it hits you right where it hurts, you know.
Yeah.
And hits you right where you live, and that's it's hard not to react to it.
Yeah.
All right, then bye guys. Good night.
Yeah.